When Maya finished digging that soil in the middle of the night, she had no idea she was unearthing the darkest secret of a billionaire family. What seemed like the tragic end of 6-year-old Ethan's life was only the beginning of something far more sinister. But what the maid discovered about the stepmother afterward would change everything forever, and you won't believe what this woman was truly capable of when her lies, her greed and her past finally came to light. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The mansion was quiet, wrapped in the kind of silence that only money could buy. Outside, the moonlight spilled over trimmed hedges and polished marble patios. Inside, every light was off, except the faint glow from the hallway lamp near the maid's quarters. Maya turned in her narrow bed, restless. Something had pulled her out of sleep, though she couldn't say what. She lay still, listening, nothing but silence. No voices, no creaks, just the low hum of the air conditioner. Then, there it was, a sound, soft, faint, almost like a whimper. Her heart stuttered. She sat up slowly, straining to hear. Again, a muffled cry, distant but unmistakable. Maya slipped out of bed, pulling her old robe tight around her. She'd worked for the Whitmore family, Richard, Vanessa and their 2 kids, for nearly 2 years. She knew every noise in that house, the pipes, the wind, the old wooden stairs. But this sound, this was different. She padded barefoot through the service hallway and peeked through the small window that looked out to the backyard. The grass was silver under the moonlight. The rose garden, Vanessa's pride and joy, stood immaculate as always. Rows of red and white perfectly shaped, except for one spot. Near the edge of the garden, the soil looked disturbed, darker, uneven, clumped as if freshly turned. Maya frowned. She'd cleaned the fallen leaves there that very afternoon. It had been perfect then. Another sound reached her ears, a weak, strangled moan, coming from that exact spot. Her pulse quickened. Maybe an animal, she told herself. A raccoon, a fox. But deep down, instinct screamed otherwise. She hesitated only a moment before slipping out the back door. The night air was cold against her skin. The grass, wet with dew, clung to her bare feet. As she crossed the yard, every step felt heavier. The closer she got, the stronger the dread in her chest grew. When she finally reached the patch of uneven soil, she crouched down and touched it. The ground was loose. Recently dug, she froze. A chill rippled through her spine. Then, from beneath the earth, faint, trembling, but real, came another sound. A muffled, desperate thump. Someone was under there. Her breath caught in her throat. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." For a second, panic paralyzed her. The mansion behind her was dark. Everyone asleep. Mr. Whitmore upstairs, Vanessa beside him, the kids in their rooms. No one would believe her if she woke them over some imagined noise. But then she heard it again, this time unmistakably human. A strangled whimper, a soft, weak knock from underground. Her instincts took over. She ran to the garden shed, fumbling in the dark for a shovel. The metal felt ice-cold against her palms. "If there's nothing here," she murmured to herself, "I'll just fill it back." "No one needs to know." She started to dig. The first scoop came out too easily. Soil still fresh, still soft. Her breathing quickened. Each motion grew faster, rougher, more desperate. The smell of damp earth filled the air. Sweat trickled down her neck despite the cold. Her heart pounded in her ears, drowning out everything else. Then, thud, the shovel hit something solid. Wood. Maya's stomach lurched. She dropped to her knees, clawing away the dirt with her bare hands until a wooden surface appeared, a small box about the size of a child's coffin. Her breath trembled. "Dear God!" She pressed her ear to the wood. A faint rasping sound came from inside, breathing. Shallow, weak, but alive. Oh my God! Her fingers scrambled to find an edge. The lid wasn't nailed shut, just wedged in place. She pulled with everything she had until it finally gave way with a crack. Inside lay a little boy, pale, motionless, covered in dirt, his small chest barely lifted with each breath. It was Ethan Whitmore. Maya's scream tore through the night. "Ethan!" She reached in and lifted him, his body limp and ice-cold against her chest. "Sweetheart, I've got you. I've got you, baby." Tears streaked down her face as she cradled him, his hair matted with dirt, his lips blue. "Please, breathe, please." His eyelids fluttered. A shallow breath escaped his lips. He was alive, Maya didn't think. She ran, through the garden, across the patio, down the long driveway, barefoot, carrying the boy in her arms. The night wind burned her lungs. "Hold on, Ethan," she gasped between sobs. "Hold on." The nearest hospital was 6 blocks away, but it felt like miles. Streetlights blurred past as she ran. No cars, no people. Only her and the weight of the dying child in her arms. By the time she burst through the ER doors, she was shaking from exhaustion. "Help, please," she shouted. "It's Ethan Whitmore. He's alive!" Someone buried him. "Please help." Doctors rushed forward, taking the boy from her arms. Nurses shouted orders. The air filled with chaos and beeping machines. Maya stumbled back against the wall, dirt covering her robe, hands trembling, her mind spinning. She didn't know how long she stood there before someone finally spoke. "He's breathing," said one of the doctors. Weak but breathing. Maya closed her eyes and wept. Relief and horror collided in her chest. Whoever had buried that child wanted him to die slowly, to suffocate in the dark. Someone in that house had done this. By sunrise, news of Ethan's rescue had already reached the Whitmore mansion. The sterile calm of the hospital was shattered when Richard arrived, his shirt half-buttoned, tie hanging loose. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in years. "Maya!" he shouted the moment he saw her sitting in the waiting area, her robe stained with mud. He rushed toward her, eyes frantic. "Where's my son? What happened?" Maya stood, weak and trembling. "He's alive, sir." I found him in the garden." "What do you mean in the garden?" His voice cracked. How is that even possible?" "I heard something in the middle of the night," she said, her throat dry. "A sound coming from under the roses. When I dug, I found a box. He was inside." Richard stared at her, unblinking, trying to comprehend the impossible. Before he could respond, Vanessa entered, flawless as ever, even at dawn. Her hair was neatly tied, her face pale but composed. She clutched her designer shawl as if it were armor. "Where is my son?" she demanded, her tone sharp but controlled. "They're with him now," a nurse interjected. "Please wait here. He's stable, but very weak." Vanessa nodded stiffly, then turned to Maya. "You dug him up? In the middle of the night?" Maya hesitated. "Yes, ma'am. I heard noises. I didn't think, You didn't think." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "And instead of waking us, you went outside and started digging in our yard." "Alone?" Richard intervened quickly. "Vanessa, she saved him." "Or buried him," Vanessa said quietly, her voice so calm it chilled the air. Maya flinched as if struck. "I would never." But Vanessa was already turning away, feigning grief, her hand pressed theatrically to her mouth. "I just can't believe this." My baby in the ground. Within hours, Detective Ramirez from the county police arrived. A seasoned investigator with kind eyes that could turn hard in a second. He found Maya in the cafeteria, sipping water with trembling hands. "Miss Maya Collins, right?" She nodded. "I just need to hear everything from the start." Maya recounted every detail, the sound, the digging, the discovery, the hospital. Ramirez took notes silently, but when she finished, he looked unconvinced. "You're telling me you just happened to hear a sound coming from underground in the middle of the night and decided to dig?" "It wasn't luck," Maya said quietly. "I heard him." The detective tapped his pen on the notebook. "You live alone on the property. I have a small room by the kitchen, and you didn't wake anyone." "The parents? Security?" "There wasn't time," she said, her voice cracking. "If I had waited, he'd be dead." Ramirez nodded slowly. but his eyes were studying her, every twitch, every tremor. By the time Richard and Vanessa returned from Ethan's room, the detective had already spoken to the rest of the staff. The story spreading through the hospital halls was no longer simple. Some said Maya had been acting strangely for days. Others said she walked around the mansion at night. Vanessa, of course, added her own gentle poison. "She's always been intense," she told Ramirez later that morning, her voice trembling just enough to seem sincere. "Loyal, yes, but emotional. Richard and I often heard her wandering at night. We thought she had insomnia, but—" She paused, lowering her eyes. "Now I don't know what to think." Back in the waiting area, Maya sat alone. Her hands still smelled faintly of earth. Nurses and doctors passed her like she was invisible, but she could feel the glances, curious, cautious, suspicious. An hour later, Richard approached her again. He looked older now, his eyes sunken. "They said Ethan's stable. He might wake up soon." Maya smiled weakly. "Thank God." He sat beside her. "I don't know how to thank you." But before she could reply, Vanessa appeared again, her heels clicking softly against the tile. "Detective Ramirez wants to visit the mansion," she said. "They need to inspect the garden." Richard nodded grimly. "Of course." Vanessa turned to Maya, her expression unreadable. "You'll come too. You were the last one out there." Maya felt a wave of dread. "Of course, ma'am." By afternoon, the Whitmore mansion was swarming with police tape and forensic teams. The once pristine garden was a mess of footprints and camera flashes. The rose bushes, once symbols of perfection, now surrounded a crime scene. Maya stood at a distance, clutching her arms tightly as detectives marked the spot she dug. "She says she heard sounds from right here," Ramirez told one of the officers. "Fresh soil, box buried maybe 4 hours before discovery." Vanessa stood near the porch, speaking softly with another investigator. Maya couldn't hear their words, but she didn't need to. Every gesture, every glance was calculated. The trembling lip, the concerned hand on her chest, the perfectly timed tears. Richard, meanwhile, wandered aimlessly. Haunted. When the police were done, Ramirez approached Maya again. "We'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow for a formal statement." "Am I under suspicion?" she asked quietly. "Right now," he said with a small shrug. "Everyone is." That night, the mansion felt different, quieter, colder. Maya tried to sleep, but every creak of the floor made her flinch. Around 2 a.m., she gave up and sat by the small window in her room. From there, she could see the roses, or what was left of them, under a dim security light. She thought about Ethan's small, cold body in her arms, about his shallow breathing, and about the faint scratches she'd seen on the inside of the box lid, the marks of tiny fingers fighting to live. A knock broke the silence. She turned. Startled, Vanessa stood in the doorway, wearing a silk robe, her hair loose. She looked like a woman carved from glass, fragile but dangerous to touch. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly. "No, ma'am." Vanessa stepped inside, her perfume filling the small space. "Neither can I." She sat on the edge of Maya's bed, smiling faintly. "It's strange, isn't it, how something like this can happen right under our noses?" "Yes, ma'am. You must be exhausted. I'm fine." Vanessa tilted her head. "You know, I keep thinking how lucky you were to hear him, to find him. It's almost unbelievable." Maya's stomach turned. "It was instinct." Vanessa leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Be careful what instincts you claim, Maya. Sometimes they make people look guilty." Then she smiled, slow and deliberate, stood, and walked away. Maya sat frozen, the echo of her words crawling down her spine. Outside, the wind brushed over the disturbed earth, whispering like a buried secret that refused to stay quiet. The next morning, grey clouds rolled over the Whitmore estate like smoke. The world looked drained of colour, and inside the mansion, that same heaviness lingered in every hallway. Maya moved through the kitchen quietly, folding towels, pretending not to notice how the others avoided her eyes. Carmen, the cook, usually warm and chatty, kept her voice low as she chopped vegetables. Even Jose, the driver who'd known Maya for years, didn't say good morning. When Maya finally spoke, her voice sounded too loud in the stillness. "Has anyone been to see Ethan today?" Carmen hesitated. "Mrs. Whitmore went this morning. Said the doctors might let him wake up soon." Maya nodded. "And Mr. Whitmore, he's busy." Carmen's tone softened. "Maya, maybe you should just stay quiet for a few days. Let things calm down." "Calm down?" Maya whispered. "They think I did this." Carmen lowered her eyes, guilt flickering across her face. "People talk, Maya. Mrs. Whitmore. She's been saying things." "What kind of things?" Before Carmen could answer, the kitchen door swung open. Vanessa stepped in, radiant as ever, holding her coffee cup with both hands. "Maya," she said, her tone sugar-sweet. Detective Ramirez called. "He'll be back this afternoon. I told him you'd be available." "Yes, ma'am." Vanessa smiled faintly. "Oh, and please don't disturb Sophie. She's been through enough." Maya's stomach twisted. "How is she?" "Delicate," Vanessa said, brushing an imaginary speck of dust from her sleeve. "Children can be impressionable. We don't need to confuse her with more questions." The way she said it sent a chill straight through Maya. After Vanessa left, Carmen exhaled shakily. "You should watch your back, Maya. That woman isn't what she looks like." Maya didn't need convincing. That afternoon, Detective Ramirez returned. His questions were sharper this time. "Do you walk around the house at night often?" "Sometimes," Maya admitted, "when I can't sleep." "Anyone ever see you in the garden before?" "No. And yet you knew exactly where to dig?" Maya's hands tightened in her lap, because that's where the sound came from. Ramirez studied her face, then scribbled a note. "You care a lot about those kids, don't you?" "Yes," she said softly. "They're good children." He nodded, closed his notebook and stood. "We'll be in touch." When he left, Maya saw Vanessa watching from the staircase. For a moment their eyes met. And in that silent exchange, Maya knew it wasn't paranoia anymore. Vanessa was building a story, brick by brick. That night, while Maya scrubbed the marble floors, she heard quiet footsteps behind her. Sophie stood in the doorway, clutching a stuffed rabbit, her blue pajamas wrinkled. Her eyes were red from crying. "Hey, sweetheart," Maya whispered, rising quickly. "You should be in bed." Sophie hesitated, then ran forward and threw her arms around Maya's waist. "I'm scared," she said in a trembling voice. "Everything feels wrong." Maya crouched to meet her eyes. "You don't have to be scared, honey. Ethan's getting better. He's going to come home soon." Sophie shook her head. Vanessa said maybe he won't. She said God takes little boys who lie. Maya's stomach dropped. "She said that?" Sophie nodded, her small fingers gripping tighter. "She said it's my fault he's hurt, because I yelled at him before bed. I told him I didn't want to play anymore." Maya took Sophie's face gently in her hands. "That's not true. None of this is your fault. You hear me?" Tears rolled down the girl's cheeks. "But she said Mommy's sad in heaven because of me." The words hit Maya like a knife. "That wasn't comfort. That was cruelty." "Sophie," Maya said softly, "listen to me. Vanessa shouldn't say those things. Your mom loved you more than anything. You didn't do anything wrong." The girl looked up, wide-eyed. "You believe me?" "Of course I do." "Then why does Vanessa hate you?" Maya froze. "What?" "She says you're dangerous. That you're pretending to be nice, but you're really bad inside." For a long moment Maya couldn't speak. She just held Sophie close. "Sweetheart," she said finally, "sometimes people lie because they're scared. But you know who I am. You know I'd never hurt you or your brother." Sophie nodded slowly, but her eyes stayed uncertain, confused by the war between trust and manipulation. Later that night, after Sophie had fallen asleep in her bed, Maya lingered by the doorway. She watched the child's chest rise and fall, the faint bruise of exhaustion under her eyes. the way her stuffed rabbit lay clutched like a shield. And then she heard something else, Vanessa's voice, drifting from the hallway outside. "Yes, Detective, I understand," Vanessa said quietly on the phone. "I'll send over the photographs in the morning." "Of course, I'll cooperate fully." There was a pause. Then, almost whispering, "She's not stable. I told you she walks the house at night. I'm worried for my family's safety." Maya stepped back into the shadows, her pulse racing. Photographs. She said photographs. The next day, the tension in the mansion thickened like fog. Richard barely spoke during breakfast. Vanessa played the grieving wife to perfection. Soft voice, downcast eyes, gentle hand on her husband's shoulder. Maya, standing by the counter pouring coffee, could feel the eyes of everyone on her. Vanessa finally turned toward her, smiling faintly. "Oh, Maya, Detective Ramirez will be stopping by again later. He said something about clarifying timelines. You remember exactly what time you were outside last night, right?" "Yes, Mom." "Good," Vanessa said, her tone sugar-coated but sharp. "We wouldn't want any confusion." Carmen and Jose exchanged uneasy glances. Maya pretended to stay busy, but her heart was pounding. If Vanessa had photographs, proof, fake or real, then she was building her trap piece by piece. That night, Maya decided she couldn't wait anymore. When everyone was asleep, she crept up the carpeted stairs, moving silently toward the master bedroom. Her plan wasn't clear, only a desperate need to know what Vanessa was hiding. The master suite door was ajar. Inside, faint light spilled from the walk-in closet. Vanessa wasn't in bed. Maya hesitated, then slipped inside the closet. Her heart hammered as she opened the small drawer near the vanity. Papers, jewelry, perfume bottles. And then a small black envelope. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Maya's breath caught. They showed her, in the garden, holding the shovel. Dirt flying, sweat on her face. Someone had taken pictures the night she dug Ethan out. From the mansion windows, every frame was angled to make her look guilty. Behind her, a voice sliced through the silence. "Couldn't sleep again, Maya?" Vanessa stood at the doorway, arms folded, a faint smile curving her lips. Maya froze. "You know," Vanessa continued softly, stepping closer, "the police love evidence. These photos, for example, they tell such a tragic story. The unbalanced maid who couldn't handle being replaced in the children's lives." "That's not true," Maya whispered. Vanessa's eyes gleamed. "Truth doesn't matter, sweetheart. What people believe does." Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her bed, clutching one of the photos she had stolen from Vanessa's drawer. The image showed her mid-swing, shovel in hand, dirt flying, the perfect frame to twist into guilt. Someone had taken it deliberately, someone who knew what would come next. By morning the house felt different, colder, quieter, like it was holding its breath. The staff whispered when she passed. Even Richard barely looked at her. Only Sophie, pale and withdrawn, met her eyes. At noon, Vanessa hosted the detective again. She played her part flawlessly, trembling hands, a quiver in her voice, gratitude to Maya for trying to help, mixed with carefully measured doubt. "She's been unsettled since the night it happened," Vanessa told him. "I found her standing in the garden yesterday, just staring at the ground." "I'm worried, Detective. For all of us." Ramirez took notes but said nothing. When he left, Vanessa turned to Maya and smiled faintly. "You should rest," she said. "You look tired." "Guilty people often do," Maya forced a smile. "And liars sleep well?" For the first time, Vanessa's eyes hardened, just for a heartbeat, before she turned away. That night, Sophie came to Maya's room again. She was shaking, her small voice barely above a whisper. "I saw Vanessa in the garden last night." Maya froze. "When?" "Late." She had a flashlight. Her clothes were dirty, like she was digging. Maya's pulse quickened. "What was she doing?" Sophie bit her lip. "I don't know. But when I asked her this morning, she said she was just taking air." Maya's mind spun. If Vanessa had returned to the garden, she was moving something, or burying something new. After Sophie went back to bed, Maya waited until the mansion went still. Then, barefoot and trembling, she crept outside. The roses rustled under a faint breeze. The moon hung low and pale. She walked toward the far edge of the garden, the same place she'd dug before. But there was something new now. A small patch of freshly turned soil, carefully leveled. Too neat. Too deliberate. She crouched, brushed her fingers across it, and found something hard buried just beneath the surface. Plastic. Smooth. A small pill bottle. When she pulled it out, she recognized the label instantly. Diazepam, a powerful sedative. Half the pills gone, Maya's breath caught. This is how she drugged him. A twig snapped behind her. She spun, but it was only the wind. Still, the sense of danger pressed in like invisible hands. She tucked the bottle into her pocket and hurried back inside. The next morning, she used the mansion's landline to make a call she hadn't dared before. Luz. "It's me," she whispered, using the name of an old friend she trusted. "I need your computer. Today." By afternoon, Maya sat in Luz's small apartment, her hair hidden under a baseball cap, the diazepam bottle sitting beside her laptop. She typed the words that had been echoing in her mind since the hospital. Vanessa Whitmore background check. Nothing suspicious came up. Just charity galas, magazine spreads, her wedding announcement. But when Maya searched using a different photo, one from the news coverage of Ethan's rescue, she found something chilling. A Spanish-language article from 3 years earlier. Same face. Different name. Elena Cortez. Her blood ran cold. She clicked the link. The article described a woman accused of infiltrating wealthy families across Latin America, marrying widowers, eliminating heirs, and vanishing with the fortunes. She was wanted for multiple homicides. The picture was unmistakable. It was Vanessa. Maya sat frozen as the realization sank in. The woman living in that mansion wasn't who she said she was. She was a predator, a patient, calculating killer who had done this before. Every detail of the Whitmore's tragedy now made sense. The perfect timing. The staged evidence, the buried child meant to die slowly and be discovered later. Maya knew what came next. Vanessa wouldn't stop until she finished what she'd started. That evening, when Maya returned to the mansion, she moved quietly through the house. From the hallway, she heard Richard's voice in the study, weary, broken. "If she's really dangerous, Vanessa, we need to tell the police." "She's confused," Vanessa replied, voice smooth as silk. "You saw her. She's obsessed with the children. She needs help, not punishment." A pause. Then Richard sighed. "I'll let Detective Ramirez decide." Vanessa smiled faintly, the sound of it audible even from the hallway. "Good. He'll see the truth soon enough." Maya slipped away before they noticed her. She had no time to waste. She went straight to her small room, pulled out her phone, and started taking pictures. The pill bottle, the photos from Vanessa's drawer, the area of the garden where she'd found the sedatives. She typed an anonymous email to Detective Ramirez's department, attaching everything. Then she hit send, but before she could breathe, her phone buzzed, an incoming text from an unknown number. "Unknown, you shouldn't snoop." "Maya, unknown, curiosity kills." She froze. Someone was watching her. At midnight, footsteps echoed in the hallway again. Maya grabbed the nearest thing she could find, a metal candle holder, and waited. The footsteps stopped right outside her door. Then a soft knock. "Maya?" It was Richard's voice. She exhaled in relief and opened the door. He stood there in his robe, looking distraught. "I just spoke to Detective Ramirez," he said. "He received some anonymous files tonight. He's coming back tomorrow." "What's going on?" Maya hesitated, then showed him the photo of Vanessa's old identity. "Her name isn't Vanessa Whitmore," she whispered. "It's Elena Cortez. She's done this before in other countries. She marries men like you, kills their families, and takes everything." Richard's face went pale. "That's insane. Please," Maya said. "You have to believe me. Ethan wasn't an accident. She buried him alive to make it look like I did it." Richard stared at the image again. For a moment the facade of denial cracked. "If this is true, then you and Sophie are in danger." Before he could answer, they both heard movement downstairs, the unmistakable creak of the back door. Vanessa was outside. Maya moved first, grabbing a flashlight and heading toward the garden. Richard followed a few steps behind. The night air was cold, the roses shifting in the breeze. They saw her near the far hedge, kneeling, shoveling something into the ground. "Vanessa!" Richard shouted. She froze, then turned slowly, her face illuminated by the flashlight beam, calm, expressionless, caught in the act. "Richard," she said smoothly, standing. "You scared me. What are you doing?" "Burying the past," she said, smiling faintly. Maya's voice trembled. "That's what you said to all of them, isn't it? The families before this one." For the first time, the mask cracked. Vanessa's eyes turned cold, empty. "You should have stayed out of it." She dropped the shovel and walked toward them, her calm voice like a whispering storm. "You think you've figured me out? You don't know what I'm capable of." The last thing Maya saw before Richard grabbed her arm was the faint glint of a small syringe in Vanessa's hand. The next morning, the hospital smelled of antiseptic and quiet dread. Ethan had shown signs of waking, and that single possibility, his memory returning, was enough to send panic through Vanessa's carefully built web of lies. She arrived early, carrying a bouquet of white lilies, her face arranged into the perfect portrait of grief. The nurses greeted her politely, unaware of the monster beneath the silk. By evening, Maya knew something was wrong. Richard hadn't returned her calls. The police hadn't arrived yet. She had one thought left: Ethan. She borrowed an old janitor's uniform from a friend and slipped into the hospital unnoticed. The corridors glowed with low light. The hum of machines echoed like whispers of the dying. As she approached Ethan's room, she slowed. The door was slightly open. Inside, Vanessa stood beside the boy's bed. Her back was to the door, her hand hovering over his IV line. Between her fingers glinted a syringe. "Vanessa," Maya said quietly. Vanessa turned. The mask was gone. No tears, no tremble, just the hollow calm of a predator cornered. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" she said, her voice low. "I could have made your death painless." "Quick!" Maya took a step forward. "Why?" "He's a child." Vanessa smiled faintly, lifting the syringe to the light. "Because he saw. He woke up that night when he shouldn't have. He saw me in the kitchen mixing the sedatives. He was supposed to forget. He didn't." Maya's pulse thundered in her ears. "You buried him alive." Vanessa's eyes flickered, the faintest sign of annoyance. "It was temporary. Just until after the gas leak. You ruined everything when you played hero." She moved toward Ethan's IV line. "But I can still fix this." Maya lunged. The syringe clattered to the floor as the two women collided, crashing against the bed rail. Ethan's monitor beeped wildly, alarms wailing through the corridor. Vanessa clawed, her nails catching Maya's face. Maya gritted her teeth, grabbing Vanessa's wrist and slamming it against the metal rail. The syringe rolled under the bed. Nurses shouted in the hallway. Footsteps thundered closer. Then a small voice, weak, trembling. "Stop." Both women froze. Ethan's eyes were open. His lips trembled as he whispered, "Maya?" Maya turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe." Ethan blinked slowly, his gaze shifting to Vanessa. You put me in the box." Vanessa went still. The words hung in the air like a blade. The nurses burst in first, followed by a security guard. Vanessa tried to speak, but the moment Ethan repeated, "She buried me," everything collapsed. Maya stepped back as guards pinned Vanessa down. She didn't fight. She didn't cry. She just smiled, a small, eerie smile, as if relieved it was over. When Detective Ramirez arrived minutes later, Maya handed him her phone. All the evidence is there. Her real name, her record, everything. He nodded solemnly. We'll make sure she never hurts anyone again. As they led Vanessa away in handcuffs, she turned her head slightly, her smile gone now, replaced by venom. Enjoy your happy ending, Maya. It won't last. But for the first time in days, Maya didn't feel afraid. Weeks passed. The mansion slowly returned to life. The roses, once tainted by death, bloomed again. The media called Maya the maid who saved a life. Ethan recovered faster than anyone expected. He still woke from nightmares sometimes, gasping for air, but every time Maya was there. Sophie, too, was healing, free from Vanessa's poisonous words. She clung to Maya constantly now, as if afraid she might disappear. One evening, Richard called Maya into the living room. He looked different, older, humbled. "You've done more for this family than anyone ever could," he said. "You saved my son, my daughter. You saved me from blindness." He handed her an envelope, a new contract, a promotion, a home on the property that would be hers permanently. Maya didn't look at the papers. She looked at Sophie and Ethan, sitting on the floor building a puzzle together. "I don't need this," she said softly. "Just let me stay with them." Richard smiled, eyes wet. "Then stay, as long as you want." Months later, the trial began. Vanessa, or rather Elena Cortez, faced multiple counts of attempted murder, fraud, and identity theft. The courtroom gasped when the truth of her past emerged. Other husbands, other children, other buried secrets. Maya testified calmly, her voice steady even when her hands shook. Ethan testified too, brave and small in the witness chair, describing the darkness, the box, and the sound of Maya's voice calling his name through the soil. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty, life without parole. When it was over, Maya walked outside into the sunlight. Richard stood beside her, holding both children's hands. Sophie looked up at her. "Maya, are we safe now?" She smiled and brushed a strand of hair from the girl's face. "We are, sweetheart. We're finally safe." Ethan tugged her sleeve. "Can we go home? I want to show you the garden." "We planted new flowers." Maya nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I'd love that." As they walked toward the car, she looked back once, not at the courthouse, not at the nightmare that had nearly destroyed them, but at the sunrise breaking through the clouds. A year ago, she had been invisible, a maid cleaning someone else's world. Now she was family. And in the garden where a boy had once been buried alive, life had grown again.